So welcome to this virtual presentation on students' perceptions and use of ICT related to the language learning aims. I'll start with providing a little bit of background on how business English is taught at our university, Vienna University of Economics, explain the rationale why we adopted a blended learning approach, and discuss two studies I conducted, one on students' perceptions and use of blended learning of formal call within the university, and the second study on students' use of social media and how they perceive these as opportunities or not for language learning. So to start with some of the constraints we're faced with at our university, we have to cope with very large class sizes. The first course, EBC 1, has up to 90 students and no mandatory attendance, which can also be a problem. The following courses are a little bit smaller, 25 to 40 students. This student cohort is a very heterogeneous one. Students come from a variety of countries and backgrounds and have a variety of experience or not in business and in language learning. The course we're teaching, or the courses we're teaching, emphasize very much content and terminology. The focus has to be, due to the large class sizes, focus has to be very much on receptive skills, on, for example, reading comprehension, vocabulary, collocations, and so on. And due to time restraints, we have to focus on the formal register. And students complain that they have very little opportunity for oral interaction, little opportunity for speaking, and that's what they call general English is neglected in class, no opportunity for practice there. Did we adopt a blended learning approach, the approach of combining face-to-face classes with online learning applications? There was, of course, the need for individualized practice opportunities according to students' needs and gaps in the knowledge. So e-materials were developed in order to complement class topics and rehearse the same topics, concepts, ideas, providing content, terminology, and language tasks, and also offering independent access to reference sections. For example, we have a very extensive grammar reference section, glossary, etc. So in the best case, it was to be hoped that this online learning approach, blended learning approach, would promote independent and self-regulated learning, because students have the opportunity to choose which path to the goal they wanted to follow. In order to investigate students' perceptions and use of this online component, I conducted two studies, the first one focusing on formal call and also comparing what students expected from the face-to-face classes compared to the online materials. So those students who actually attended the first course, as I mentioned in the beginning, no mandatory attendance. These students wanted to get a global introduction to new topics, new business concepts. They wanted to be able to practice listening and perhaps up to a point also do a little bit of speaking. Classes also had social functions such as keeping in touch with fellow students, competing and comparing, seeing how good one's own English is compared to fellow students, etc. And of course, classes also fulfilled strategic functions such as providing regularity and structure once or twice a week, the weekly meetings, and students sometimes hope to also get exam hints from teachers, other students, and the like. Compared to that, e-learning, the online application, what expectations and functions did I discover there? As far as linguistic and content was concerned, students focused more on details when they used the resource. They used it to check their understanding, to practice, to test their knowledge, to see how well they were doing. So in a way, they got more feedback from the call application rather than from teachers, obviously. A little bit of social function as well, because the platform provided forum also gave them the opportunity to contact all students of EBC1, and of course a strategic function, very much exam-oriented studying. That's one of the main goals of students in the first year, also in the second years, just getting through the exam, passing the exam. And they also swapped hints and tips, often exam related, via the forum. So to present what users perceive to be positive factors about e-learning and about the online application. First of all, they appreciated having a choice of time, of place, and of speed, and here provide one quote each that illustrates how students reacted. Somebody said, what I like about e-learning is that you can do the tasks and learn whenever you have time and you want to, and you can do it on your own with a tempo that suits you best. Yeah, quotes are left unedited. They appreciated the individualized practice. For instance, a great advantage of e-learning is that you can study at any point of need and concentrate on special topics. Explanations and feedback were also immediately provided, obviously, by the call resource. That explains the right answers, explains why others are wrong, and students found they could use the online application to monitor and consolidate their knowledge, helps me understand what we have learned in class, reinforce my knowledge, and prepare for exams. However, there were also negative factors, which can be seen on this slide here. First and foremost, I would say learner beliefs about language learning. This group of business students is very much convinced that what you need to do in order to learn a language is mainly speaking and listening and interacting face to face. So somebody simply said, I didn't use it because that's not how languages are learned. Students very much believe in the importance of oral interaction. In English, I don't like it because, in my opinion, discussing in groups or just speaking with other people is much better. And finally, e-learning is used not just for English, for business English, but for all the other first year subjects. So some students just found there's too much reliance on computer mediated learning, too much use of e-learning in general. I don't really like working with computers all the time. Right, so to sum up, why did students not use the online application regularly parallel to classes as it was intended? First of all, a certain amount of teacher dependence. If teachers failed to endorse the online materials, students simply forgot about them, didn't use them, etc. Students often lacked experience in self-directed learning, were overconfident, said things like, well, my English is good anyway. Very much, of course, the typical student's mistake of relying on studying just in time for exams rather than regularly over the semester. And as mentioned before, these learner beliefs about language learning, many students thought that the resource, the electronic resource, would not help them to achieve long-term goals. And these long-term goals for business students are to be able to function well in spoken negotiations, in presentations, in any kind of sales talk, in a multinational company, etc. So perhaps the call resource could help them achieve their short-term aims, passing the exam, but not the long-term goals. So to sum up once again, sort of responsible for reduced use of online materials are learner factors, for instance, perceived need, if students had capacity for self-regulated learning, they might use the online resource more frequently. And learner beliefs, learning styles, and main goals could also have a negative effect on use of the application. Contextual factors obviously play a role, such as endorsement or not by opinion leaders, external structure. Some teachers try to tie in the online materials with the regular classes or provide online midterm tests, and that tended to enhance use. And if students found the exercises, the tasks in the call application to be really relevant for the exam, for the end of term of exam, obviously that also promoted use. Right. If we now look at how students use and perceive of other material and social resources outside class in order to improve their English, in order to improve language learning. I found that they still use, I divided that into material and social resources. I found that they still very much like to use so-called old media such as books, films, SATV, English textbooks for other courses. Of course, they did lots of online reading, newspapers, blogs, journals, and the like, and online listening and watching, from American sitcoms to films to whatever is downloadable nowadays. Interestingly, as far as social resources are concerned, there was a very strong preference for native speakers for face to face interactions. Students thought that non native speakers would not be in a position to help them along, to correct their English, to provide uh, the right word if they were looking for a word, and so on. So, despite the fact that they were aware they would be functioning also in non native ELF environments, they preferred native speakers. So, communication via mail or social media is very often with non natives and therefore rated second best. Also found that they use media such as Skype very rarely for oral communication, mainly for written communication, which again is considered second best for language learning. So these type of Facebook, Skype, etc. Social media were considered useful for keeping in touch, but not really seen as a practice or a learning opportunity. Finally, students' beliefs and aims very much shape their behavior, i.e., their use of new technologies. Aims can be divided into study related and job related aims, and job related skills. Here, students focus very much on the importance of oral competence. They think they want to be able to function well in negotiations, presentations, and they believe the prerequisite for that is being fluent, having good vocabulary, good pronunciation, and the like. Their language learning beliefs predisposes them towards immersion approach. They believe they learn most and best by talking, by imitating native speakers. They believe in the superiority of the native speaker model, and they also think that overt corrections help them to improve. Concerning communicative competence, oral competence is important, is the benchmark of good English in their views, and written competence is of much less importance. So, students' use of technology material and social resources is very much related to their beliefs and to their aims. What they tend to do is they tend to go for exposure rather than for detail focused interaction with any kind of materials, social materials, or material resources. They undervalue perhaps written communication and undervalue communication with non-natives as learning opportunity, which is why these learning opportunities, computer mediated or not, are underused. And I'm going to finish off with a quote that sums that up. Somebody said, "I'm convinced that speaking would be much more helpful to improve your language skills than simply writing emails or communicating via Skype."